Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to show up. We'll start the meeting shortly.
Thank you very much. This is the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meeting for December 7th. I'll call the meeting to order. Heidi, let's first, I think somebody has their audio on in the room. Thank you for those who are able to participate on Zoom. Great. Heidi, let's call roll.
Kevin Dayton,
Here.
Carmel York,
Here.
Richard Pagnello,
Here.
Ashika Shadeo, Adam Gonzalez,
Here.
Ethelyn Thomas,
Present.
Charmaine Jones.
Present.
Yep.
And also staff, could you introduce yourself?
Heidi Gaddy, admin assistant for Ryan Altmeyer.
Jody Schizzle, I am the account analyst for the
Ryan Altemeyer, Associate Superintendent.
Thank you very much. We'll move to public comments. These are comments on items that are not on the agenda, general public concerns, and you will have 3 minutes each to speak. There's no one in the room here who made public comment. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public? All right, moving on from that. Review and adopt minutes of the September 21st, 2022 Bond Oversight Committee meeting. Are there any changes to the draft minutes that were provided to us? I didn't see any, but check spelling and all that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Do a roll call.
Kevin Dayton,
Aye.
Carmel York,
Aye.
Richard Paganello, Ashika Shadeo, Adam Gonzalez, Ethelyn Thomas,
Aye.
Jermaine Jones.
Aye.
Moving on to item D. Review financials for Measure P in project updates June 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2022, first quarter. And Ryan, I'll pass that to you and we can pull up our either on paper or on your electronic documents. A page that says Monterey Peninsula Unified School District General Obligation Bond Funding Program Measures I and P. That's page 1. And then moving on to page 2 is the 2010 General Obligation Bond Measure P overview. Go ahead, Ryan.
Give me just 1 second to share my screen and get the item up.
So the first item is to review the financials for Measure P project update. So Measure P, this will be the last time that you'll see Measure P. As there is no other transaction. So there was just one transaction this quarter. Was a minimal amount for architectural engineering fees, but after this, the Measure P bond has been expensed and you will no longer have reports or review financials for that.
Great. So this is the end of our oversight for Measure P. 12 years after it passed, it's done. Well, actually, I have to say that's good getting it completed absolutely in 12 years. I actually see school districts that 20 years after they pass the bond, they're still, selling bonds for it. And I always say, you know what, there's a good number of people who voted for that who probably aren't even alive anymore. So it's good that the school district gets right to work on spending the money that voters have offered. Thank you for the leadership of facilities here for doing that, and also our school boards over the years for making sure that happens. Are there any other comments about Measure P? All right, let's go to.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I did have a question. I couldn't get off of mute. So it seems to me that some projects that were approved in Measure P are rolled over to Measure I. Is that correct?
In general,
Yeah.
No. So the board authorizes projects and they approve funding sources for those, but the funding sources can change on the project depending on what's available as the board takes action on that. So there may be some projects that were originally planned for Measure P. At the end, if there was money available, that may be shifted to Measure I if the board takes action to do so. Or there may be some lingering expenses after the fact and that may come several months, weeks, years after the program has been closed. As long as it's an expense that's appropriate, if the board takes action, they approve those, they can be charged to Measure I.
Okay, so to clarify, the board can kind of move the projects around between those two bond funds as they see necessary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions related to potentials and warrant activity for Measure P? All right, we say farewell for Measure P. And now let's move on to item F, Review financials for Measure I and project updates, July 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2022, first quarter. And we have pulled up here 2018 general obligation bond measure, Measure I overview. So let's pass to Brian for a review of that, and then we'll look at the line items.
Certainly. So this is Measure I. This is what the oversight will be going forward, because this will be the only active bond measure for the school district. And you'll see, as we've done in the past, you'll see the expense reports broken down by school site, and then following that, the next item will be the actual individual warrants for those projects. And I believe, Mr. Dayton, I think you've done a page turn in the past going over that.
Yes, why don't we do that? And we will go right to the first page, which there's 7 on the bottom. It's also pulled up here on Zoom with the title 2018 General Obligation Bonds Measure I Project Activity for 2022-2023 fiscal year quarter 1. So let's start with this first page, and what we're going to do is at each item, and I'll ask if there are any questions. And whenever you see something that you think needs some review, point it out, and we'll take care of that. And we will do this for the financials, and then we'll do this for the warrants. We do a cross-referencing here 2 different ways, just to make sure that everything is being done as voters wanted. So the first page, starting with the Fulton Middle School campus improvements at the top. Any questions? Oh, yes.
I would just like to add, for the benefit of the committee, if you look down about 75% of the page under 004, which is our dual language academy, the emergency repairs there were emergency roofing repairs. And as we get into the report, you'll see that listed under legacy roofing.
Thank you for that. And we mentioned at the last meeting, the emergency repairs that are going on as the infrastructure continues to deteriorate. And I think school board members are aware of that too. Any questions?
I just want to add, committee member Ashika Stan has joined the meeting.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Welcome. We have every member here. Any additional questions on that page? Moving on to the next page, A's CCHS campus improvements.
Hang on 1 second. There we go.
Could you please give us a page number just to make sure that I can't see it on the screen for some reason, but just tell me if we're on 8 or further.
On the paper, which I'm looking at, it's on page 8. I'm assuming that the slide says 8.2.
Yeah, okay. Starting with Hayes.
Yes, is there any way we can adjust this on Zoom so that the page number shows?
I'm not sure why it's not showing, but
You can
it's
make
that
that.
was sent out.
You can make it full screen. Just make the PDF this. At the very top, click the green button, the little green dot. Go to the left. There you go.
Circle.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shereen, for bringing that up. All right, page 8. So let's review that. Any questions? Page 9.
I have one question. I'm still not clear. Well, I understood that any DSA expenses, which I believe the item 23, Monterey High School new classrooms for 89,000, was a Department of State Architecture's cost. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was paid to the Department of General Services, which is always the way it should be, right? Because Department of General Services is the umbrella over
That's correct.
DSA. Then I'm wondering when we get to the warrants for that, why we do have some payments to DSA.
We can look at that when we get to item G. That will
Okay.
review the warrant.
Okay.
The warrant.
Thank you.
Yeah. that thing.
Good point. Jody, did you have something to add about that?
I was just gonna mention that, the state isn't always, in a hurry. Particular cost was our final closeout fees for the Monterey High Science Center.
Oh, well, better late than never, I guess.
Kevin, would you please repeat that? I could not really hear her answer.
Than never. What was mentioned here is that's actually the closeout cost for the Monterey High School new science building, which, as you know, was completed a couple of years ago. And Jody was just noting that the state agency tends to be a little slow on finishing up the processing of financials there. All right, page 10. Any questions? Page 11. And everybody's okay with what we have discussed in the past. We can do a reminder about administrative costs and spread holding if you have any questions. All right, page 12.
For next item.
Right. Now we're moving into the to the warrants here, and let's continue on looking at the line items, and we'll discuss the PSA when we get to it. Page 13. Any questions? Page 14. Any questions? Page 15. Any questions? Page 16. Any questions? Page 17. Any questions? Page 18. Any questions? Page 19. Any questions? Page 20. Any questions? Page 21. Questions? Page 22. All right, here's the DSA fees that are being brought up.
21 also.
Okay, yeah, this one. The question is, should the listing and the warrant activity be the same as in the financials for consistency?
Yeah, so the Department of General Services is the umbrella under which DSA. And so there could be multiple things for the Department of General Services, but these are specific to the DSA fees associated with these projects. That's why they're categorized that way. So we list them in the system. So if you're looking at, sorry, you're on page.
The first one's on 21, underneath the department of,
Yeah, the Division of State Architects, correct. So that's just the way that we categorize them in the system. Division of State Architects, because that's who we're working with as far as who we're working with, but the payments themselves and warrants and the checks are made out are to the Division of General Services, correct, Jody? That's what's on the one, correct. Yeah, that's why they're classified as DSA for our purposes, because that's who we're working with. But when the warrants go out, they go out to DSA. So the other aspects of the system, and I think this may be just a heading lookup table, but I think in our financial system, they may be categorized. I have to double check that. But we convert that so it's easy for the report purposes, so we understand that these are fees to DSA, since that's what we talk about here.
I guess the one question to ask is, would it be difficult to just change the heading name, or would that cause inconsistency with past reports?
It would be a change from the past reports, because I believe on the past reports, they were Division of State Architects, but we can look into that. So what the company who helps us generate these reports, we can look at that. It's a programming thing that we can work with them on.
Right, and I think about that just because we've had it explained to us, but you never know when somebody in the public is going to look at it and ask the same thing, and the question was brought up here, so obviously it was noted. Jermaine, do you have any additional questions or comments about?
Yeah, so I just to clarify, so DSA services are billed to DGS. I guess for the public, I should be saying Department of State Architect Services are billed to the Department of General Services. What other services would be billed to the Department of General Services if it's not the DSA fees?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you at the moment, but there are multiple divisions under DGS. It isn't just, DSA is just one of the departments that they oversee. So there's several, like they have a facilities management division, they have the state architects division. There's a few other that I'm not familiar with off the top of my head, but it's more than just DSA.
Right. That's exactly my question. So it'd be nice to hear what those other departments and services that they render are.
Yeah, they have them listed on their website. If you go to dgs.gov, they have a listing, dgs.ca.gov is the website. They have a listing of the departments that are under Department of General Services for California.
But I'm more interested in what our projects are for our measure P or I, sorry.
DSA, that will be what you'll see.
Basically, it would be correct to say that everything that's listed in the financials or under Department of General Services is actually within the warrants as Division of State Architect.
I would say for the most part, yes. I may not be 100% certain on that. There may be, like I said, I'm not, if something else may come through, but yes, for the most part, what you'll see is part of these plans and what we're doing with the bond projects, it will be DSA primarily who we're working with through the Department of General Services.
All right, maybe we could just, if it's okay with the committee, we could just have a note in the minutes here that we put an inquiry into staff to see if we could have the Department of General Services and the Division of State Architects changed into consistent labels for both the financials and the warrants.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Great. All right, any other questions about, I think we, about page 21? Moving on to page 22. For consulting costs, what is the name of the consultant?
Are you referring to at the bottom of the page?
Yes.
That's Hancock Park and DeLong.
Oh, okay, I see, that's above the line, very good. Any questions on page 22? Page 23,
Question
yes,
here. Is there a way we could get a number on the total legal fees that have been spent on Monterey High School issue?
Yeah, we can look into that for you. They are itemized under the annual reports. You'll see them. So if each annual report will show that run up for that fiscal year will show the legal fees associated with any project. So this one in particular here has for Monterey High, it will look similar to that, but it will be for a whole fiscal year. So we,
So, well, so we've covered what, at least 2 fiscal years paying legal fees, so can we get,
at least, it may have started in 2018 and 19, so maybe more than 2 years.
could we get a total of all those years is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, we'll, yes, we can look into what that reports and see what the accumulated total is on those annual reports.
Thank you.
Also, is there a history of legal fees throughout this? Just as business is being conducted and buildings are being upgraded and improved, has there been a history of these legal fees that have come into play, say like 10, 15 years ago?
Well, most projects will have some sort of legal fees just because there's contract review, bond dispute. So there may be some of those costs in more projects. Some projects may have more than others. But they're typically very minimal compared to the project costs. It's if they're having to do some, if there's a dispute in the contract or if there's a bid protest, there may be some legal review of it. And that's what you typically would see in legal fees for a construction project. Monterey has a little bit different.
Okay.
That project.
And they're like the people's involvement with the legal quandaries, I guess, has probably made that price grow
Yes,
substantially, right?
absolutely, yes.
Had they not been so harsh with the whole lighting situation, right? There would have been less money spent out of that bond.
Yes, there's a large, yes, so due to some of the litigation for that
Yeah.
project, there are larger legal fees than we have for the other projects, so that's what you're.
Yeah, I
Yes,
was trying to get this question in perspective, like I think you want to know like how much more have we been paying, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's a relevant question, but anyway, I just kind of want to get the heart of that. That's all.
Got it, okay.
I think, I don't think we need to make a motion, but, is it the consensus of the committee that maybe at the next meeting, we could have a 1-page, list of the, legal expenses for Monterey High School? And if you really,
I would like that very much.
yes,
Related to the field specifically, or all of them?
well, right,
Just about the field specifically, or in general?
I'll give you some context. First of all, this is the expenses that have been, that the district has had to pay for litigation actually goes all the way back when originally the environmental review was a negative, mitigated declaration, I believe. The opposing lawyers submitted, letters threatening a lawsuit because they said that environmental review was insufficient. The school district then surrendered and did a full-fledged environmental impact report, which I believe cost about $250,000. And then the opponents of the light sued anyway. So you know what? I would like to not only get that list of the total legal fees for that particular project, but also another page that lists the total amount that was spent on environmental review.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, and it might be kind of a big task to kind of throw at everybody. Maybe if we can have it by say June 7th, would that? be-
Actually, I don't think it's all that hard. In fact, I could probably put it together myself in an hour based on
Brian said they have a total every year.
right? Not only that, because we have these categories, I think it'd be good to have that. And, once that's provided to the oversight committee, we can also provide it to the school board too. This is not a policy committee and we don't take positions on, whether, this project should move forward or not. That's a board decision. But certainly it's within our role to tell the public that, a wide variety of unexpected expenses have occurred
Yeah,
because of opposition to the project. And then the board can look at that and do what it wants to do with it. But I think it would be good for us to know that as well.
and also to communicate that to the public, because to let them know kind of like at what level do they want to take a complaint? Like are they going to take a civil approach and just kind of?
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit off.
Always going to be
What
loyal.
we're supposed to be doing here, so I have the request, so I'll look into that, and then when we get to the next meeting, I think it's feasible to have something like that at the next meeting. But we'll communicate, out in advance if there's any changes to that, but that's, we'll definitely look into, provide all the information.
I think it'd be good. Once again, you can't take policy positions here. But we can get a listing of the amount spent on the environmental review and the amount spent on litigation so that we have that available and then the public knows that we're watching over that. All of these expenses would fit into, the purview of what the bond measure does. But this is one project that's going to take a lot longer and cost a lot more than people thought.
Yeah.
Excuse me, this is Charmaine speaking. The gentleman who originally asked for that, I think he also said he'd like some kind of a comparison, like a historical comparison of legal fees spent and to put this in context for the public. Would it make sense to have one or two other major projects and their total legal fees so people can really see the difference that's being paid? Because as you said, all projects have legal fees, which to some of the public, that's new news. So maybe every project has $100,000 and this has 500,000. I have no idea. I didn't, add this up, but a comparison of some type to one other project or two might be more informative.
Is it the role of this committee to make those comparisons? These are all legal fees under the bonds, right? So there's no regard to whether or not they should be, or that it's okay for them to spend that money. I appreciate it, but to get too extensive on this feels like it's out of the scope. Again, I understand why you want it, but to require all of this investigation is something that's out of the scope of the committee. To me,
That's where I disagree. If it has a mathematical value and it's in front of our face, it's in scope. So this is something we are dealing with, and it is coming out of taxpayer dollars. So it's not that we're going to be vigilant and do something with this information. It's just something that we're just doing our due diligence to kind of understand, these types of behavior and how they've hurt, Ryan and everyone here, where they could have used that money to move forward and help with flooding issues or whatever the case may be. It's just a drain on our resources.
Well, even on this, we're moving into the policy world because there may be some people on this committee who actually oppose the lights for reasons that have nothing to do with the role of the bond oversight committee. I do think it's within our role, though, to at least ask for a special couple of pages that lists the environmental review and the legal fees for this.
Yeah.
Now, regarding other legal fees, I can't remember, Ryan, how many bid protests has this district received in the past several years?
There has been, I couldn't give you a number off the top of my head. There has been some, they happen from time to time. Not everything requires legal review. Sometimes they do, sometimes we're able to handle those. It just depends on what that is. Contract disputes are very rare as well. So not every project will have legal fees, but there may be some incurred for various projects.
Because I'm guessing these fees must be minimal compared to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are on this particular case, right? You're not, somebody has to write a legal brief.
Yeah, I would say that like I said, without getting too far into the weeds here, the cost for the Monterey High field, if we're looking at the legal fees just from what the reports that you see, you will note that there are more legal fees associated with that project than a typical project. So you'll note that. Like I said, as far as off the top of my head, what that dollar amount is, I couldn't tell you. We can go back and calculate that. And I have the notes here. I think I have what you're asking me for. So we'll put that together and then we'll have that ready for the committee by the next meeting that we have in March.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions on this topic? All right. Are there any other questions about page 23? Next page. Any questions? Next page. Everyone okay with the rental leases and repairs line item? All right, next page, page 26. Any questions? Page 27. Any questions? Page 28. Any questions? Page 29. Any questions? Page 30. Any questions? Page 31. Any questions? Page 32. Any questions? Page 33. Any questions? All right. Future meeting dates are proposed here for item 8. Does anybody have any objections? Is there any sort of conflict with holidays or other major events?
I don't have any objection to the dates. I have a question, I'd like to ask the committee about.
Sure, we'll do that at I.
It's in reference to this.
It's in reference.
Oh, to the dates? Okay, go ahead.
Meetings, in reference to the meetings. I have an issue now. I've moved to a retirement community. And we have fixed times when we have meals. And I need to leave in about 5 minutes now to get there. This was a pretty fast meeting. Pretty short agenda. I'd like to know if it's possible to start the meetings a little earlier than the art started.
Well, first, let me check with staff and see if that's even possible from the staff viewpoint. Could you start at 4:30?
We could,
I
yes.
can give you a ride. If you're willing to take a ride from me, I wouldn't, I think you're right.
I drive.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
My problem is the timing when the meals are served.
Oh, shoot.
We can accommodate, from our perspective, 4:30 would be fine. It's a matter of, I know that in the past, it's typically been held at 5 just because conflicts with schedules, people working, but from our perspective, we can start earlier than 5 if the committee is comfortable with that, and that will work.
Do any committee members have an issue with starting at 4:30 PM instead of 5 PM? I'm not hearing anything. All right, why don't we have these starting at 4:30 in 2023? So Richard, we can have you here for the whole meeting, and if there are any problems, we can address those at that time.
I appreciate that.
So 4:30. Committee member comments. Does anyone have any comments?
I would just like to say one thing. Sometimes I get self-conscious when I speak because I'm such a big guy. I don't want to be intimidating. I didn't want you to think I was talking over you. But,
100% you were
yeah,
not.
I just,
No problem.
yeah, but I just want to communicate there, you know.
I respect
All right.
your comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
The only comment I have is I believe that we still have one vacancy for embarrassing here, the business representative, correct? And I have been working on that as the government affairs director of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. And have not had success in repeated efforts to try to recruit somebody to that, so.
Technically, Ms. York has also resigned from position, but she's graciously continued on with us because we have not been able to get anybody in that position either. I have reached out to our full office supervisors to communicate with our PTA member to see if there's anybody else that is interested in assuming this position, but she's done a great job of continuing to assist.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay,
Kevin, there's,
Yep.
there's also Charmaine speaking. My term is up. And I really wasn't aware that I had to apply again and all of that. And since I came on the committee, I was working part-time back then 2 years ago, and now I'm working full-time plus. So I'm willing to serve for a while until my position is someone else fills my position.
We appreciate that, Ms. Jones. That'd be very helpful. So have your term expires, Heidi?
Ms. Jones and Mr. Pagno's terms ended in November, but I was out unfortunately and unexpectedly. So I've sent them the new applications. I have one printed on my desk for you. So Mr. Pagnolo is going to reapply for his seat, and obviously Ms. Jones is going to go to resign. So we'll also solicit in the next ad for her position as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jones, again, for being willing to serve until we find your replacement. That's extremely helpful and valuable, and your input's been valuable. So thank you for that.
yeah, it's the irony of things, when a committee is doing its job and things are going well, no one wants to participate. So thank you for your service here, and I will continue working on finding a business representative. I'll see about parent of a rural student PTA member and community at large Monterey. Those are the ones we are looking for, and the one that's actually still vacant right now is the business one. Are there any other questions? Well, good job. Our meeting's adjourned at 5:42. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.